Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale, Arizona, and today, former President Donald Trump and basically everybody he's ever known or worked with is under assault. He is facing 4 different buckets of legal challenges, and we're going to go through all of them in detail. Let's jump right into it. We see here Donald Trump in the middle. He's going to represent Donald Trump and basically everybody else that he knows. Ivanka and everybody from his businesses and all of his sons and everything facing a bucket of different legal challenges. The first one that we'll go through today is Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney, of course, is kind of the figurehead of the January 6th committee, the inquiry that is going after Donald Trump and everybody who is even remotely connected to January 6th. And so, of course, this is much more than Liz Cheney. This is Bennie Thompson, and it's Jamie Raskin, and it's everybody else who's a Democrat who's involved with wanting to make sure that Donald Trump is removed from the playing field. So we'll take a look at what's going on, because it's not just going after Donald Trump. Liz Cheney, is really going after his kids, and you'll see. Major media companies, they want subpoenas from Facebook and some of these bigger tech companies, and so we'll see how this all breaks down. On the other side of the equation, we have a new Manhattan district attorney, this guy, Alvin. He just got elected, just got sworn in early January, and so we're not real sure what he's going to do yet, but he has indicated that he's also going to be bringing claims against Trump. And these are sort of carryovers from the Cyrus Vance, who was the prior prosecutor that was really sort of investigating Trump and everybody under his umbrella as a criminal investigations. We're also going to check in today with, of course, Letitia James, Tish James, the tishiest of the tishies. She is now also filing a new complaint, I think 158 pages, or it's a memorandum in response to Donald Trump's motion. We'll break down what's going on there. Letitia James, we've talked about a lot, and so she's staying very active. And then we've got a new player enters the game. We've got Fani Willis. Fani Willis now is the district attorney out of Fulton County, Georgia. Fulton County, Georgia, we know, is where there was all of the Georgia shenanigans with Brad Raffensperger and all of the 2020 election business. And so she's now requesting that a grand jury gets formed so that she can submit charges to them. So we're going to break that down and more. Let's start right at the top with January 6th and Liz Cheney and Bennie Thompson. They've been on a roll. They've just been, they hit this thing hard in 2022. And here's what it looks like. January 12th, we see the select committee, they posted this on Twitter, the select committee is seeking information from Rep. McCarthy about the violence of January 6th. Who's Rep. McCarthy? Well, this guy. He is a very high up minority leader. He's somebody in the Republican Party who is pretty high up in there. And so they're sending, basically a letter, not a formal subpoena, but a letter over to him saying that the minority leader's public statements demonstrate that McCarthy has information relevant to the investigation. All right, so you've got now Congresspeople going after Congresspeople. You have the majority party going after the minority party in a political pseudo investigation. It's a wild thing to see, and to see everybody clapping like this is a cool thing. Because remember, this can reverse itself as soon as the balance of power changes. Not sure that people would be too happy about that. We also have another post. You can see that was a couple days ago in January. This one now is January 18th. We see that they're going after other people. They posted, Bennie Thompson and Liz Cheney, the select committee issued subpoenas to Rudolph Giuliani. We've got Jenna Ellis. We have Sidney Powell here and Boris Epstein, all now being served with subpoenas. 4 individuals with who advanced unsupported theories about election fraud, they say. They pushed efforts to overturn the results, they say, and they were in direct contact with the former president. And so they say, now listen to this, we expect these individuals to join nearly 400 witnesses who have spoken with the select committee as the committee works to get answers for the American people about the violent attack on our democracy. Okay, so 400 witnesses, including the president's actual former lawyers, right, where there's all sorts of very important privileges there, like attorney-client privilege and like the ability just to seek counsel. we're going to see here what's happening, because we're also going to look at another one of Donald Trump's lawyers who is just getting lambasted all over the media because she's a nice looking woman. And they're saying that Donald Trump had some sort of, ulterior motive in hiring her. And I mean, the point here is lawyers who get associated with Donald Trump become the public, they receive the public ire. I mean, they really get beaten out of representing the former president. It's kind of an interesting thing that's happening. So the Select Committee, we also know, they sent out additional subpoenas to 4 social media companies. So if you think it's just people who are sort of part of Trump's entourage, no, it's also the social media companies. They say after inadequate responses to prior requests for information, in other words, the tech companies are not bowing down to these two. They say, well, the Select Committee is now demanding records from Alphabet, Meta, Reddit, and Twitter. Let's go through all of those. Alphabet, that's the Google company. That's the Google parent company. We've got Meta, which is the Facebook parent company. We've got, of course, Reddit. And then you've got Twitter, of course. And so, this might seem like okay for a lot of people out there. They might say, all right, well, this is okay because I'm a Democrat and these are Democrats. And I'm okay because I trust the Democrats going in there and obtaining all of these records. If Liz Cheney goes and scours your Facebook records to root out those dangerous insurrectionists, well, then that's okay, right? Because they're the dangerous people, and you trust Liz Cheney to go on your Reddit account, or you trust Bennie Thompson to just sort of scroll through your Twitter feed and see what's going on there. But what happens once the balance of power changes and somebody else takes control and another party wins? Would you be okay if Donald Trump was doing the same thing? Would you be okay if Donald Trump and the Republicans were demanding your text messages and your records and blah, 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 blah? And you might say, well, but I would have nothing to do with that. And that's exactly what many people here are saying. So while the January 6th committee is continuing to investigate all of their political opponents in America, they are also doing something that is actually useful and interesting and worthwhile. And we'll see if we can find out what comes out of it at some point. I'm talking about Ray Epps. Ray Epps was supposed to be interviewed today. Don't know if that happened or not. Don't know if that was something that was made public. Actually, I do know it's not made public because here's what we've got. Washington Examiner says the House panel investigating the J6 riots will eventually release a transcript of its scheduled Friday interview. Eventually. So they asked Chairman Bennie Thompson about this. They said, Bennie, you going to release a transcript? He said, quote, we will. But there's a review process, and that goes with every deposition. So he has to have an opportunity to review it, Like after we get done doing the deposition of Ray Epps, he's got to make sure that it's okay before it actually gets published. He says, this is what I said, Thompson said. At some point, it will be made available. At some point. I just can't tell you when. So they're going to have a closed door behind the scenes interview with Ray Epps, this guy who was literally there the night before, the night of, whispering into people's ears right at the moment of the 1253 breach on the east side or the west side of the Capitol building. Was on the FBI's most wanted list, number 16, until he got taken off. Curious. So if they wanted really, sort of eliminate the conspiracies, they could just put him on YouTube and just say, hey, Ray Epps, tell me about what was going on there, what's up, and sort of be open and transparent about the whole thing. But instead, Bennie Thompson says we're going to get the transcripts at some point. So this is just sort of the long list of the continual assault or sort of investigation going after Trump. You can see here, Select Committee also, as of January 20th, is requesting that Ivanka Trump now provide information for the investigation. So we're going to spend some time on this one because we already have been following the story. In a letter to Mrs. Trump seeking a voluntary interview, Chair Bennie Thompson underscored evidence that Trump was in direct contact. Apparently, she's got direct knowledge of the former president's attempt to persuade Pence to take action to stop the counting of the votes. And so you can see here, they're requesting voluntary interviews. And we're going to go through this. But let's get a little bit of backstory on this because we remember that there's a lot of different things that they said Donald Trump did wrong. And a lot of this largely was sort of, I would say, discretionary leadership. Liz Cheney said that he should have gone into the Oval Office and, put on a Superman coat or something and done something, to stop this. He could have cast a spell, something whatever they do in Harry Potter, and everything would have just stopped. Right? That's kind of what she was wanting. Now, he went out to the Rose Garden and made a statement, but she wasn't happy about that. Apparently, he was in the dining room or he was in some room that she wasn't happy about. And so what we're seeing develop out of all of this testimony is they're trying to say Trump didn't do something that he should have done, right? It's a dereliction of duty argument. And that's saying that he's sort of a negligent commander in chief, and they can pass a resolution, that anybody who was insurrectionary under the 14th or a dereliction of duty, pass a resolution continuing that nobody can run who's ever, been found to be in contempt under House, okay, whatever that is, right? So that they can try to get him from running again. So I think that's really where this will go. I think that there is starting to see more hints that there will be, felony charges, really. I mean, is where a lot of this is going, saying that this amounts to some sort of felony charge. Now, Liz Cheney has not said that, but we're starting to see, there's sort of demands for it from a lot of people on the left. And if the demands get loud enough, they may have no choice but to send this thing over to the Justice Department. So here is what Liz Cheney was saying back on January 2nd. Remember, she came out of the gates, and this was sort of this is where the whole theme that the January 6th committee is setting up. They're talking about this dereliction of duty. Trump was right next to the Oval Office, and he didn't go in there and do something about this.
The committee has firsthand testimony now that he was sitting in the dining room next to the Oval Office watching the attack on television as the assault on the Capitol occurred. We know, as you know well, that the briefing room at the White House is just a mere few steps from the Oval Office. The president could have at any moment walked those very few steps into the briefing room, gone on live television, and told his supporters who were assaulting the Capitol to stop. He could have told them to stand down. He could have told them to go home. And he failed to do so. It's hard to imagine a more significant and more serious dereliction of duty than that.
Hard to imagine a more serious dereliction of duty than somebody deciding to leave the dining room, go in the Oval Office, and give a speech, give a statement. So let's break that down. We've already done this before. Let's do it again for just, thoroughness. Liz Cheney is saying that Donald Trump should have been here. The X marks the spot in the Oval Office. She says he should have been right here. And he wasn't. Why? Because he was over here. He was just one room over in the dining room. You can see this room here. And so she was saying he should have just got his big fat butt up and walked right over here, right into the Oval Office, and sat down behind the Oval Office desk and said, "Stop it, insurrectionists. This is America," and put that podium down. And he didn't do that. Liz Cheney said, uh-oh, that's a dereliction of duty. That's a huge problem. But what Donald Trump, let's say that Liz Cheney is correct. He actually was in the dining room. All right, that's fine. At some point, he did actually have to go into the Rose Garden, which is over here, because we know this is the statement that he gave, because this was recorded. And we can see right behind him, I believe that's the Oval Office. And so you can see that at some point, he must, I would speculate that he went out the Oval Office, maybe right out this door and then into the Rose Garden. Or I guess he could have bypassed the Oval Office and gone through the president's secretary's office and out this way, or maybe out the cabinet room, or maybe he went around. He probably wouldn't go to the press briefing room because they were, jerks to him. And so, there's a lot of different things that could have happened. But the point is that Liz Cheney is saying his dereliction of duty is not handling the situation the way she thought it should be handled. But that's not how any of this works. So, he's the president, she's not. And so the standard has to be, was there something that was an actual dereliction of duty that the president did? And we've gone through this analysis many times. We've shown you that his response was more or less in time, right around the same time that the rest of the government was responding. The whole of government was responding about the same time that Trump was responding. It was embarrassing, just another catastrophic show of incompetence of our entire federal structure. But they all took several hours to even mobilize. Biden and his campaign, they released a statement, I think, 12 minutes before Trump did. So it took a lot of people time to get their bearing straight and figure out what was going on. But you can see Liz Cheney was taking that statement, taking that conversation, saying that somebody knew that Donald Trump was in the dining room and should have been in the Oval Office saying what I think he should say. And that was a problem. And so they send this letter over. They posted this over on the J6 website. They say the select committee seeks information from Ivanka Trump. Bennie Thompson today announced the select committee is going after Ivanka, saying that they want a voluntary interview with her, saying she's got relevant material. You can see here's the document. The address of Miss Trump has been redacted. But the rest of this, you can see the chairman. We've got Lofgren, Schiff, Aguilar. We've got Raskin, Luria, Cheney, and Kinzinger, the two fake Republicans on this fake committee. And so they're writing to Miss Ivanka, and they're saying, Dear Ivanka, on June 30th, we adopted a resolution to allow us to create a fake political committee. And this fake committee is investigating facts and we think you're pertinent and aware of. On January 6th, you were serving as an advisor to the president and the head of the White House of Economic Initiatives and Entrepreneurship, and you were there at the White House. And so we're writing today to request your voluntary, which is laughable, no thanks. So I guess you can just continue to write this for your own well-being, says your voluntary cooperation. We respect your privacy and our questions are going to be limited to January 6th and influences that may have occurred, influence the events of January 6th. Okay. Here's what he says. We need to know. Ivanka, first, Select Committee is investigating efforts by Trump to impede the count of the votes. Under our system of government, as you know, the states choose who's going to be the president. When the people of each state have spoken, they should count them. In advance of January 6th, Trump and his supporters litigated and lost dozens of challenges. Now, you can see, right, this is really for everybody else, right? It's not. He's making his case. It's a political letter. But okay, on December 14th, consistent with our Constitution, we went through everything. There was a problem that happened on January 6th. They say Mike Pence was attempted to be enlisted by the former president to delay the counting of the votes. And so they've got questions about this. A lawyer, John Eastman, with whom the president was apparently consulting and planning for January 6th, has since invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. He fears criminal prosecution. Ms. Eastman has, on that basis, refused to give testimony regarding conversations with Trump, right? And so they say because he fears criminal prosecution. Do you see how dishonest that is, right? You invoke your right against self-incrimination because that's your God-given right. You have a right to remain silent because if you open your fat mouth, then losers like this guy are going to take advantage of everything you say and use it against you, all right? So, yeah, it's because he fears, how about corrupt prosecutions? It's using this in a pejorative manner. Your right to remain silent is your right. Anytime somebody sort of invokes that as, well, why? Is it because you're afraid you're going to get prosecuted? It's inappropriately maligning that right. All right. He says Mr. Eastman has on that basis refused to give testimony. So we go on. Ivanka, on January 6th, President Trump attempted multiple times to persuade Pence to participate in his plan. One of the president's discussions occurred on the morning of the 6th. You were present there in the Oval Office and you heard that call, right? General Keith Kellogg was also there during that call, and he has said the following. He testified about that discussion. And so General Keith Kellogg is saying this is what happened. Question. It's been reported the president said to the vice president, you don't have the courage to make a hard decision. And maybe not those exact words, but something like that. Do you remember anything like that? Words, says General Kellogg. I don't remember exactly either, but something like that. Yeah, being like you're not tough enough to make the call. Okay. Another report of this phone call is that Trump said, Mike, it's not right. You can do this. I'm counting on you to do it. If you don't do it, I picked the wrong man 4 years ago. You're going to wimp out. You remember anything like that? I remember words like that. Yes, I can't. I can't. It's tough. Yeah, he says. So it's like general summations of a loose conversation that was one side of a phone call. What is this? You were present in the Oval Office and you observed at least one side. Keith Kellogg was also in the Oval Office, so he also heard one side. And he can't remember what it was. Something like Mike Pence is a big weenie. All right, so yeah, Mike Pence is a big weenie. Okay. So what? All right. Kellogg also testified regarding your remarks at the close call. Ivanka Trump turned to me and said, Mike Pence is a good man. I said, yes, he is. All right. And look. Okay, so it's like multiple levels of hearsay, right? It's like out of court statements, on upon out of courts. It's a summary. It's like more or less summations. I mean, it's like they might as well have been playing a game of telephone with a bunch of 8-year-olds. The select committee wishes to discuss the part of the conversation you observe there, the one-sided conversation that the general can't remember anything about. Similarly, the select committee would like to discuss other conversations you may have witnessed about Trump's plan to impede the counting of the votes. For example, the committee has information suggesting that Trump's White House may have concluded that the actions Trump directed vice presidents to take would violate the Constitution or be illegal. Did you discuss those issues with members of White House's counsel? First of all, that's a counsel, right? So there's some privilege there. But also, how about the idea that you might be allowed to have conversations with your team to talk about how the mechanics of governance work? Okay, we spent a lot of time on this show, going through the Congressional Research Service and analyzing all the different permutations of how this whole thing could go, right? And there's a lot of people, including, I think it was, how many different attorneys general who all signed documents going up to the Supreme Court asking for clarification about all of these things. There are now people saying that we need, an electoral count act so that we know how this actually works in the future, right? There are issues with all of this. And it's absolutely appropriate for both sides of the analysis to be advocating for their outcome. This is what happens in law every day. Prosecutions fight for their side, the defense fights for their side. Perfectly normal, right? It's not inappropriate for one side to investigate to try to gain an advantage using the law and the mechanics of the system. And so if she's having conversations with White House counsel about these legitimate things that they can do, that's totally appropriate. And one side doesn't get to just sort of craft the rules about what types of investigations are appropriate. Okay, that's the adversarial system. If everybody has to play by your rules, then it's not really a fair and open fight, is it? My point is, if Liz Cheney and Bennie Thompson get to tell Trump and his team what they're allowed to talk to their own attorneys about, that's insane, right? They're allowed to investigate whatever they want to investigate. Otherwise, we don't live in a system of sort of equal adversaries. We live in a system of one-sided adversaries. All right, so to your knowledge, were any such legal conclusions shared with Trump? Similarly, in the days before January 6th, a member of the House Freedom Caucus, with knowledge of the planning for that day, sent a message to the White House Chief of Staff with this warning: if POTUS allows this to occur, we're driving a stake in the heart of the Republic. Did you discuss that or similar concerns with the White House Chief of Staff? Or with the Vice President or his staff? Likewise, with a former senior White House official with your daily contact? Vice President, right? This was saying, I believe, yes, it was the right thing to do. Was Trump advised about any of these things with senior White House staff or the lawyers for his campaign or others? Right? That's none of your damn business. He's allowed to investigate those things. You're allowed to use your lawyers to investigate your legal options. It's like, it'd be like sitting me down and being like, well, Rob, did you interview that police officer with the intention of trying to get your client's case thrown out? I mean, there's pretty good evidence he did it. And if you uncover something, and so you can't even you shouldn't even be talking to your lawyers about that stuff because he might get off and he's a criminal. It's like tying your hands in the justice system. And that's kind of what she's implying should happen here, which is offensive. Second, the committee is investigating President Trump's response to the attack. Response. So the planning and then the response. President's speech on the ellipse ended at 1:10. Large crowd proceeded over there. They did not stop, went into the area. We've talked a lot about that. He skipped over 12:53. Remember that? At 12:53, that's when Ray Epps was there, and they broke into the West Barrier. But maybe they're going to ask about that today. Maybe they haven't talked to him yet. So that's why. Curious. Elements of the crowd began to march earlier than 1:10. Yeah, at 12:35 with Ray Epps. At that point, it was already apparent this would not be lawful, peaceful protest. Okay, goes on. Select Committee is aware of the motivation of many of the rioters from their posts on social media, but we also have some other questions. During his speech on the Olymps, he said, I hope Mike Pence is going to do the right thing. I hope so, I hope so, I hope so. However, at 2:23, he informed that Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what needed to be done. Okay, so we've got questions about that. Then at 2:24, the tweet went through the crowd, and the crowd went crazy. were particularly interested in the discussions in the White House around that time. Testimony obtained by the Select Committee indicates that members of White House staff requested your assistance on multiple occasions to intervene. Remember, they were saying, hey, Ivanka, go tell Trump to get out of the dining room and go say something about this. They wanted to attempt to persuade him to intervene. Published reports say Lindsey Graham also called you during this period and said, asking the president to plead with people to leave. General Keith Kellogg also explained to the White House to take action. Here's what some of the inquiry looked like. The president was, according to one account, whose, don't know, was, quote, stubborn, and staff recognized that Ivanka might be the only person who could persuade him to act. They said, do you think she, Ivanka, could help him get President Trump to a place where he could make a statement to try to stop this? Somebody says yes. Don't know who. So you thought Ivanka could get her father to do something about it? To take a course of action is the response. And so Trump didn't say yes to Mark Meadows or Kayleigh McEnany or Keith Kellogg, but he might say yes to his daughter, somebody says. That's exactly right. Bennie Thompson says the testimony also suggests that you agreed to talk to the president, but had to make multiple efforts to make him act. So they continue with their questions. They say, and so presumably, anonymous person, the first time that Ivanka went in, it wasn't sufficient, or she wouldn't have to go back again, right? Like she went in there multiple times, because if she only went in there once, that would have meant that that one time was effective, but it wasn't effective. So she had to go back in, right? And the responder says, well, yes, ma'am, I think she went back there because Ivanka can be pretty tenacious. Also said, so Ivanka came up with these other interviews, said that you had to make multiple efforts to persuade Trump to act. And so presumably the first time that she went in, got that. Yeah. In addition, other evidence obtained by the committee demonstrates that throughout this period, many supporters of the president's were trying to contact the White House. We've seen a lot about this. Individuals were Donald Trump Jr., Laura Ingraham, Brian Kilmeade. We got Sean Hannity. We've got multiple members of different people. Incoming text from somebody. One White House staff member received this with somebody else. Is someone going to get to POTUS? He has to tell the protesters to dissipate. Someone's going to get killed. Response from the White House staff member. I've been trying for the last 30 minutes, literally stormed the outer oval to get him put out the first one. It's completely insane, somebody says, right? We don't know who that is. In the midst of this violence, Kevin McCarthy went on CBS Live repeating his plea. I know President Trump put a tweet out there. I told him he needs to talk to the nation. And so we're interested in this question, Ivanka. Why didn't White House staff simply ask the president to walk to the briefing room and appear on live television to ask the crowd to leave the Capitol? What kind of a ridiculous question is this? Why didn't White House staff simply ask the president to walk to the briefing room and appear on TV? Oh my gosh. These people would, it's just hysterical. General Kellogg testified, quote, he very strongly recommended they do not ask the president to appear immediately from the press room because the press conferences tend to get out of control. You want to control the message. Apparently, White House staff believed that a live unscripted press conference would make the situation worse. Okay, so did you answer your own question there then? We are particularly interested. Here it continues. President Trump ultimately filmed a video. Already talked about that at 4:17, saying, go home. We love you. You're very special, but go home. Select Committee understands it took multiple takes of the video. Information say that they want the unused clips. President Trump has a pending lawsuit seeking to block the release of those records, but we are going to talk about those next because they're going to be getting them, it looks like. As is evident from the events described above, you've got knowledge about all of this. And so we need more information about this. And you can see there's a whole third section of stuff they want from her. And it just continues on and on and on. But we've spent enough time on this. So you can see Sean Hannity's also comes up in this letter. Finally, the Select Committee is investigating the former president's activity because he was talking with other people. Hannity texts apparently Miss McEnany. Right? You've seen all of this. Here's how the letter wraps up. Select Committee would like to discuss this with you. Contact lawyer. Here's our memorandum with former White House counsel. Please meet with us soon between February 3rd or 4th. This is very important to us because the American people deserve to understand the details. Signed off on by Chairman Bennie Thompson. Now, what do you think the odds are of Ivanka Trump going and saying, oh, yeah, where do you want to meet? At Starbucks? Sure, that sounds great. Where'd you like to do this, right? It's a voluntary request. The answer is going to be a hard no on that. And so the letter is largely for politics, as much of this has always been. And so we'll see if it continues to escalate. But you remember what Bennie Thompson just mentioned, that they wanted additional records from the Trump White House, and it's looking like they're going to get them. Let's take a look at what happened in the Supreme Court. Another big bucket, but also a setback for the Trump campaign as it relates to the January 6th inquiry, because the people who want these records are the J6ers. You can see here, let's take a look at the makeup of this case. So out of the Supreme Court, they just issued this ruling on January 19th, and it involves Donald Trump, former president, versus Bennie Thompson. Okay, you can see the two of them down here, and this is a fight over the National Archives, which is the agency, the federal agency that houses the records, right? All of the records. So as soon as Trump left the White House, they go in there, they archive everything. And so now that Bennie Thompson has power, he wants the actual records from the National Archives. So he submits a request over to them. Trump also does not want that to happen. So he's sitting here trying to block this from going on. And so he goes up to the Supreme Court and says, hey, we need an injunction to stop Bennie Thompson from getting access to those records. Block him here before he gets there. And what happened is the judge basically, the Supreme Court basically said, nope, you're not going to get an injunction. There was a lower court ruling that is now authorizing the National Archives to give these records over to Bennie Thompson, and there's nothing Trump can do to stop it. Let's take a look at what's happening here. This is the application for a stay of mandate and the injunction, but you can see the Chief Justice saying it is denied. So the effort by Trump to stop the release of those records, not going to work. The questions about this are what circumstances a former president may obtain a court order preventing disclosure of privileged records while he was in office. Trump was saying, hey, I was a former president, okay? These records should be private and privileged, and I've got a whole slew of reasons why. But here, they're saying, you know what? We don't even need to get to that question. The Court of Appeals had no occasion to decide the questions because it analyzed and rejected Trump's privilege claim under any of the tests he proposed. Okay, so basically what it's saying here is it doesn't matter if Trump was still president or not. His status, it says, as a former president made no difference in the court's decision. Any discussion of the Court of Appeals about President Trump's status as a former president must therefore be regarded as non-binding dicta. So he's not privileged to withhold those documents. Now, so this is the opinion of the court. And so those documents, basically what's happening here is the mandate and the injunction, the request that Trump had are declined, right? The Supreme Court is not going to hear it. And the lower level court already said that the transfer of the records is okay. So they denied it. Now, Justice Thomas would have granted it. He would have granted the application into the Supreme Court, and then they could have heard the case on the merits and decided it, but that didn't happen. Kavanaugh is respecting the denial of the application, but he's giving us a little bit more details here. Let's go through this quickly. He's saying, the Court of Appeals suggested that a former president may not successfully invoke the Communications Act, the Presidential Communications Act. He says, I respectfully disagree with the Court of Appeals on that point. A former president must be able to successfully invoke that Communications Act because you kind of need that stuff. You need executive privilege. Otherwise, it would be eviscerated if you just say there was no privilege at all. Court versus Nixon, or U.S. versus Nixon, we have a case. In that court, they explain the importance of confidentiality to the presidency. Obviously, it's important. Nixon court noted by way of historical example that the Constitutional Convention was conducted in complete privacy, and it remained closed records for more than 30 years. And so for this president, their advisors, they also need, he says, future confidentiality. So part of this is, part of the argument was that Donald Trump had left office, right? Trump had already left. And so because he's out of office, he can't look backwards and execute executive privilege retroactively. And so if the outgoing administration leaves and the incoming administration wants to open up all the records, You don't have any privilege to stop them from doing that. And so basically what they're saying is we never even really reached that issue. Here they're saying we got to be careful that we're not just, kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, saying that we do need to talk about future privilege protections for outgoing administrations because it should be actually sort of retroactive. Otherwise, people are going to narrowly sort of police themselves and their conduct and their speech while in office. And that may not lead to the right outcomes because they won't be frank. It's going to be chilled, right? The speech is going to be chilled is sort of how you phrase that. And so he writes here, Court of Appeals concluded that the privilege claim at issue would not succeed even under those tests. And we can leave it at that. January 6th was very happy about this. They say the Supreme Court decision was a victory for the rule of law and the American democracy, saying the Select Committee has already begun receiving records that former President Trump had hoped he kept hidden. We're going to look forward to additional productions about this important info. Our work goes forward to uncover all the facts, and they're not going to be deterred. Now, this, I am going to imagine, is going to be just slowly leaked out, right? All of these documents, anything that they can take out of context to make Donald Trump look bad, anything that, as I was explaining earlier, is going to be the exercise of political gamesmanship, or let's say even legal gamesmanship. Well, what happens if we do this? And what happens if we get these senators to do this and these House Republicans to do that? Okay? If you don't think that the Democrats were doing that every which way from Sunday, you're wrong, because we covered it, okay? And there's a lot of people out there who were a part of that, big name Democratic lawyers. You can find them all over Twitter, right? They spent millions of dollars exercising the legal tools that they had to give them maximal advantage. Same thing happened with Donald Trump and his team. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. But if it sounds bad, they're going to bring that out of context and they're going to, it's insurrection. See, there it is. So just brace yourselves for that. January 6th committee doing cartwheels this weekend. Very happy, sending letters all over the place. Looking forward to getting mine in the mail at some point because, I think they're morons. So I assume I'm on the list. All right. And so who else is attacking the good former President Donald Trump? Letitia James. You remember her? Tish James. Very hip. The Attorney General for the state of New York. Somebody who actually ran for office and got elected on the promise of prosecuting an individual, okay? Think about that. In this country, somebody is running for office saying, first day on office, I promise to prosecute that guy that you don't like. Oh, okay. And there are people, enough of them, who voted for her and gave her the victory. Kind of sick. Remember Letitia James? She's got this facial thing where she starts thinking about Donald Trump. She gets contractions. Here's what happens. Here's what that looks like.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president. This illegitimate president.
This illegitimate president.
Oh, yeah. So that's Letitia James. Yeah, we're real familiar with her. Covered a lot of her cases. And so she posted this on Twitter just a couple days ago. Here it says, we are taking legal action to force Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump to comply with our investigation into the Trump organization's financial dealings. Okay, so now, as I said earlier, Donald Trump's getting away every which way. He's getting it from all angles. January 6th going after him. We've got Letitia James, the Tishy of the Tishies, is now going after him. No one in this country can pick and choose how the law applies to them. Says, we have uncovered significant evidence indicating that Trump and his organization used fraudulent and misleading asset valuations on multiple properties to obtain economic benefits, including loans, insurance coverage, and tax deductions for years. Okay. Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump have all been closely involved in the transactions in question, so we won't tolerate their attempts to evade testifying in this investigation. Oh, my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, so she says, we will not be deterred in our investigation, our efforts to continue this investigation, uncover the facts, pursue justice, no matter how many roadblocks Mr. Trump and his family throw in our way. No one is above the law. Well, Letitia, you already said that, like in the same tweet thread over here. No one in this country can pick. You said the same thing multiple times. All right, but we get it. you're a broken record on the topic. Let's see what she actually filed. Here it is. NBC's reporting Trump's filing cabinets and Post-it notes. She details new areas of interest in the company probe. So she's going to go into his, maybe, I don't know, maybe his trash cans in his bathroom. I don't know what she wants, but it's weird. Letitia James this week laid out what she described as, quote, significant evidence. Paper she filed with the New York Supreme Court. She says that they unearthed new evidence in their ongoing civil probe into the former president. So they want the judge to enforce subpoenas against Trump, Ivanka, and Don Jr. because they all work there. So here's what that looks like. You can see here, I'm pretty sure we covered the preceding motion on this previously. It was basically they issued subpoenas for all of these people. You can see here, Ivanka's in here, Donald Trump Jr.'s right there. We've got the Trump Organization and a slew of other people here in the case caption. And so they issued subpoenas for them. And so Trump and his team, they filed a motion to quash those subpoenas. And so here they're responding to the motion to quash. They're filing this big fat memo. I think it was like 158 pages, something like that. Actually, I think it was shorter than that, but there was a big addendum or something. So who's filing this? Letitia James, coming out of the Attorney General's office. Not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's Letitia James. But we can see here we've got the table of contents, the table of authorities. We've got a couple of the arguments. So it says the Office of the Attorney General is entitled to documents from Trump. They want sworn testimony from each of the respondents. So that means they want Ivanka, Trump, and Don Jr. to sit down and testify. They say Trump's testimony must be compelled. Ivanka's testimony must be compelled. Criminal proceedings that are running in parallel provide no legal basis to quash or stay the enforcement of the subpoenas. All right. And this was a big argument that we had in a prior video I did. I don't remember if it was on the live show or in a prior video, but there's an effort by the Trump team to say that what they're doing here is very inappropriate. If you remember, I think it was on the live show, we talked about Letitia James being on The View. She went on The View and had this little weird interview with all of them and said, here's what we're doing. We've got two things running in parallel, right? This is what she said. She said, we've got a civil investigation going through my office, the Attorney General, but we also have a criminal investigation going through the prosecutor of Manhattan, his office. And we're working together. Well, there's a problem with that. You know, part of your cooperation in the civil case is so that you don't get charged criminally. And if you are cooperating civilly and they use that against you because their offices are essentially one and the same in a criminal case, then now you have no incentive to cooperate in the civil case because they're just going to pick up whatever you said there. Like, in other words, if Letitia James's motion is successful here and Ivanka and Donald and Don Jr. all have to testify and they say something that incriminates them, and Letitia James, who's playing patty cake with the same DA's office, Alvin we're going to talk about next, if he just takes that same material and then goes and files criminal charges, they've just incriminated themselves, even though they tried to avoid that, right? They waived certain privileges to sit down and do a deposition under the basis that they won't be incriminated. So it's conflating a bunch of stuff. So that's the argument they're making. They're saying it's essentially the same office and we should not be compelled to do these depots because it's going to be tainted. It's going to be brought over into the criminal prosecutions. And so Letitia James here is arguing the opposite of that, right? A couple pages saying no legal basis to quash or stay the enforcement of the subpoenas. Coordination between parallel and civil criminal proceedings is standard procedure, she says, and controlling case law requires the denial of the motion to quash the subpoena. So if you want to read the whole thing, of course, that's in the slides over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, but there's a lot there. We also have the Manhattan DA. Now, this guy replaced a former DA who I believe was Cyrus Vance was that guy's name. And he was the guy who was really interested, I believe it was in Trump's CFO. Remember, they were investigating his CFO and where his kids went to private school and all sorts of stuff. This guy just got elected, though. That other guy's no longer in office, and so we don't know too much about him. But this article came back from December 20th, 2021. And back then, he was pledging to focus on the Trump investigations. And so I'm pretty certain we'll see something from him soon enough. CNN reported the next Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Briggs, says he plans to personally focus on the high-profile probe into former President Trump's business. He's going to keep at least one senior prosecutor on the case. Bragg, who's going to be sworn in on January 1st, he's in office now, says hasn't been briefed, don't know anything about the case, but I am going to continue to prosecute it because I'm a political clown like the rest of them. But he indicated he has no plans to disrupt the investigation he's inheriting. He also wants to focus on his own agenda. This is obviously a consequential case, one that merits the attention of the DA personally. Thank you for electing me. Here's what he probably should be focused on. If you've been paying attention to New York and many other big cities, it's kind of a criminal catastrophe going on out there. Here's what he said about that incident where people are being thrown into subways.
Certainly, this is a tragedy. My heart goes out to the family. I echo what the commissioner and the mayor said in terms of our partnership, working together, the district attorney's office and the NYPD. Not going to go into potential charges, but New Yorkers deserve to be and must feel safe on the subway. And this is a top priority matter for my office. We're working hand in hand with the NYPD.
All right, so two priorities.
No.
Two priorities from the new DA. One, making sure that people don't get pushed into subways. And number two, taking down Donald Trump. And he is also joined by yet another district attorney, somebody named Fannie. Fannie is the district attorney out of Atlanta, Fulton County District Attorney for the Atlanta Judicial Circuit. You can see her here. Fannie Willis is now going to be going after Donald Trump as well. So here's another one. I'm pretty sure they sort of synced these all up together, like their calendar just came, on January 20th. Make sure all your stuff's filed by that deadline because it's all coming down. She says, Dear Chief Judge Brasher, I hope this letter finds you well and in good spirits. Please be advised the District Attorney's Office has received information indicating a reasonable probability that the state of Georgia administration of elections, including the state elections of president, was subject to possible criminal disruptions. Criminal disruptions. In Georgia? In the elections? Wonder what that's about. Our office has learned that individuals associated with these disruptions have contacted other agencies empowered to investigate this. As a result, our office has opened an investigation into coordinated attempts to unlawfully alter the outcome of the 2020 elections. We've made efforts to interview multiple witnesses and gather evidence, and a significant number of witnesses and prospective witnesses have refused to cooperate with the investigation without a subpoena requiring their testimony. We've got one example. Brad Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, an essential witness to the investigation, has indicated he's not going to participate in an interview unless he's presented with a subpoena. Therefore, I'm requesting, as the elected district attorney for Fulton, that a special purpose grand jury be impaneled for the purpose of investigating the facts and circumstances relating directly or indirectly to the attempts to disrupt the Georgian elections in the state. Specifically, a special grand jury will not have the authority to return an indictment, but may make recommendations about criminal prosecution as it sees fit. They want this to be open for any time period required in order to accomplish its investigation so they can continue to beat this drum and beat this horse into ground for the next 3 years until Trump runs again. So you can see that's going to be one reason they want this. Number two, the special purpose grand jury empowered to review this matter and this matter only. And three, grand jury not required to attempt to address this matter in addition to their normal duties, right? I'm requesting here that we get this grand jury carried out so I can go issue subpoenas to everybody that I want. And that is from the new player to the game, Fannie Willis. Fannie Willis. Hope she's okay. So, all right. So Trump, 4 different buckets of different criminal Not all criminal. Actually, some are criminal potentially criminal. They could start small and go into criminal. They all want it to be criminal. We'll see. But Trump, of course, billionaire, former president, should have some pretty powerful attorneys, right, representing him. Well, some people out there in the media are getting a little bit critical about who he has chosen to work with. You can see here, Axios, Jonathan Swan over there, reporting that, scoop, Trump's friends worry about the legal pick for his New York case, saying that she lacks experience. Whoa. Well, close associates and advisors to Trump say they're concerned about the New Jersey attorney Alina Habba in this high-stakes legal fight. Former president, he's got access to a lot of powerful people, but you can see how condescending this article is. Former president typically has access to prestigious experts, but Trump has turned to a former general counsel for a parking garage who works at a small law office near his Bedminster, New Jersey country club. Oh, you see where this is going. Oh, we met her at the country club. She's a parking garage lawyer with a small office. Here's what they're saying. Somebody says he has some lawyers that are very sophisticated with years of experience. But he's now fallen prey to inexperienced lawyers who are just telling him what he wants to hear. Like others, the source requested anonymity to discuss sensitive matters. Says it's disconcerting to everyone around him who actually care about him. A second source says there are real concerns about having a state court tort lawyer come in and represent Donald Trump, not understanding the nuances and issues that surround a former president. Well, that's coming down pretty hard on this woman. Here's who she is. Her name is Alina Habba, or Abba. Alina Abba, maybe the H is silent. I don't know. Apologies if it is. Alina Abba is currently the managing partner at the firm. Mid-sized firm, serviced a Fortress subsidiary for 7 years. Experience litigating, corporate litigation, formation, number of different states and jurisdictions. Super lawyers, okay, so, that type of stuff is really irrelevant. Let's see. She has mediated numerous matters in civil division, active member of New Jersey Bar. Okay, so right, that's who she is. Here are her practice areas for her website: business and commercial litigation, civil litigation, commercial real estate, family law, personal injury. So, a lot of these are kind of nuts and bolts, transactional law, family law, of course, and personal injury. Those are, people businesses, and a lot of these others are, very transactional, contracts and things like that. So not to say that they're not, all law is people, because people live in society and the laws apply to people, but you get what I mean, right? Some are sort of really, really front facing, sort of consumer facing. Others are a little bit more transactional, business facing. So don't know, but she's getting raked through the coals on this. Washington Post also said, to sue the New York Times and his niece, Trump turned to a low-profile attorney. It's like, man, that is so rude. David Fahrenholt and Alice Critties saying, it's a low-profile lawyer. She's just low-profile. Terrible. We also, and Twitter is going after her. Says that Trump has assembled the best, but she's got a MAGA hat. All right, got a MAGA hat, so I guess that makes her nuts. Somebody else says, where'd you get your law degree? Trump University. Bad Fox Graphics on Twitter says, we all know how she got the job. Well, it's like, aren't these people supposed to be like ultra feminists and stuff? What is this? Lawsuit filed by Alina Habba, lawyer. Her profile on her webpage doesn't look like her law school. Mentioned she took a negotiation course at Harvard, but she went to a bad law school. It's like, man, some of those are kind of, sexist comments there. Inappropriate. Here's what she sounds like on Newsmax.
Well, prior to him becoming president, she was going after him. She is a sick person who really, really, truly has taken her oath of office and just weaponized it. And we basically today said, look, we get the court system. We get that it's going to take a couple years to get through a normal case. But this is so bad. We have to stop right now and be fair. That the fishing expedition has to stop.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it seems pretty competent. I agree with her. I think Letitia James is nuts. But ABBA responded in a statement, said, "It's a sad day when the press finds the need to belittle someone who is elected not to work at a white shoe firm, but has rather opted to build and manage her own law firm." Agreed. Totally agree. Totally agree with her. If you believe former President Donald Trump has fallen prey and being victimized by someone such as myself, then you do not understand Donald Trump or his family very well. Eric Trump, and son of the former president, also defended ABBA. In a statement to Axios, he described her as an incredibly competent attorney who has our utmost trust and confidence, has the fortitude to take on some of the most politically corrupt and unethical institutions in the country. 37 years old, began representing Trump last year, frequents Bedminster, which is how she and the former president got to know each other. Over the past 6 months, she's represented him on a number of different cases. So that sounds fine. That's perfectly reasonable. What do you think about it? Let's take a look at our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, because Trump's in the, he's got some legal battles going on around him, and I want to know what you have to say about it. See the Veil is here. This was from yesterday. See the Veil says, Rob, does Biden and Nadler share the same diaper? I think there was some leakage, and Harridge was left with a broom, a mop, and a dustpan. Between those two, truly leave the floors a mess, and yet they again leave Kamala to clean up the mess. Yeah, that was a mess. A lot of cleanup yesterday on Aisle Joe. Let's see what we've got from today. Fast forward. Okay. Oh my gosh, did I not update the form? I didn't update the form. All right, we've got Bittersweet says, this topic is on the Trumpster attack. They should answer, I don't remember. 1 year into this nightmare, I'm scared. It's amazing how they get away with this insanity. I'm so sick of them. The thing that gets me about this whole thing, it's like, look, you may not like Donald Trump. That's fine, right? You can have your opinion about him. You can think he's a monster. You can think that what he said was inappropriate. You can think that maybe, there was an insurrection even. Okay, if you think that, you can even, I'd say, go that far. But now you're starting to see what happens when you have total power and you have an unbridled, ultra-political subcommittee, right? What can they do? They can go out there and cause a lot of havoc. Now, again, even if you're on that side, right? Like, let's say, put yourselves, okay, just reverse it. Reverse the whole situation, and you can see how easily this whole analogy becomes problematic. If you just flipped it, Donald Trump's in charge. There's a red wave in 2024. Donald Trump wins the House, the Senate, and the White House. And he is not happy with anything that happened over these last 4 years. Okay? And he just decides, you know what? I'm going to use all the precedents that they set and do exactly what they did to me. And I'm going to go hard. And he's got Republicans to do it. And Americans are sick and tired of 4 years of inflation and open borders and crime throughout every city and wrecked foreign policy. And they give him a red wave and they say, go get him. Yeah, go get him. Would you be happy with that? Okay, I wouldn't be happy with that, right? Because, again, I don't think that we should be living in a world where you have political prosecutions against opponents that are engaged in legitimate political conversation. They're going after Sean Hannity and Sebastian Gorka, okay? Crying out loud. You think Sean Hannity's going to go into Capitol Hill with a flag and take over America? His private jets and whatever he has, No. Okay? It's to take out a player on the opposing team. And you may not like Sean Hannity and disagree with his politics, but this is America and he's got a right to say it. So it is disturbing, right? I can see how this flips and it becomes very problematic. One tough chick who just joined us over on Local says Hennepin County Sheriff David Hutchinson was driving upwards of 126 miles per hour, not wearing a seatbelt, intoxicated when he crashed, and totaled the county-owned SUV he was driving. Pled guilty, was sentenced last month to 2 years probation and fined $610. If you were my lawyer, you think you could get me this sweet deal? Since I don't have any power, money, or influence, I assume the answer was no. No, that's a deal that's only applicable to sheriffs. All right. You don't get that. I mean, if you were a sheriff, one tough chick, like if you were, sheriff tough chick, then that would, yeah, you'd be good. I could get you the deal on that. No problem. 2 years probation, probably get you a better deal. Probably get it dismissed. Probably blame that guy for it. Yeah. Wait, did he just crash? Did he kill anybody? I don't know the story, but Total the county-owned SUV. 2 years probation, fine 6. Okay, yeah, well, yeah, that's a good deal. That's a pretty good deal. It's good to be sheriff. Look, it's good to be sheriff. It's good to be popo if you're going to be in trouble. Let's see what else we've got. See, the Veil is here, says, oh, how the Capitol has fallen to the soap opera days. It's like watching As the World Turns and some of the others all over again. Only difference is these fools make our laws while TV shows were just TV shows, or some should have believed. Maybe we should put a petition together to put this investigative committee on TV as actors to run this committee and allow real elected leaders to run our nation. That's basically what we've got as actors, right? They're sort of just giving speeches and taking donations. Since they're too scared to work for a food bank, they're too scared to feed the homeless at a homeless facility, they're too out of touch with reality, but make a soap opera TV series in the Capitol. Completely pathetic. I can name 5 TV shows that are really awful that perform better in TV drama than what this committee is doing. On a completely different topic, is there a chance we can break down this so-called freedom to vote bill of what is wrong and what is right in the bill? Lastly, I truly enjoy your discussions on the Federalist Papers. The last time I read these was in middle school. All those memories of the debates with my instructors come to mind. Been too long, and it's really appreciated to have an opportunity to learn them all over again. Keep up the awesome work. Well, thanks, you, the Veil. Yeah, I'm having fun with those. I know that most of the channel doesn't like those videos, but I kind of want to get them all just done. You know, just go through them all just to say, we did the Federalist Papers here, okay? All of them. All the Anti-Federalists, all the Federalists. It's just done. It'll just be something cool to say that we did here, and I'm glad that you're enjoying them. But yeah, I mean, it basically is a soap opera, right? There's that running joke that, you know, politics is Hollywood for ugly people. That's all. Sergeant Bob says, just wait until in the future the Republican majority snatches up Sleepy Joe's records, specifically about Hunter. Yeah, and you go after everybody. Go after anybody you want who's in that administration. And you go after Hillary, go after Obama, because they're all connected. All you got to do is get one person, right? They got one person who said Ivanka was in the room. Then they get Ivanka. Same thing. Get one person who's in the room. Oh, they text message Obama. Oh, go get Rachel Maddow's text messages. Oh, okay. Well, she was text messaging with Cuomo, and Cuomo was text messaging with whoever you need. It's the same thing. Kincaid says, Rob, I agree with your thoughts on equal adversaries. They act like children who got caught cheating and are now acting up in the yard. There's no perfect actor in life, including Trump. However, an old school New York City guy with national pride is a bull that loves to chase the weaker would-be players. With him mixing things up, who else is there? Who else is there? I don't know. It's a good question. Sergeant Bob also says, of course, illegitimate L. James is ignorant of the fact that the USA tax code has been a quagmire for years. Different CPAs, IRS agents can look at numbers and come up with entirely different interpretations, all with factual basis. Right. And that's, I didn't want to digress into that, Sergeant Bob, but that's exactly right. Right. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. You could take a look at anybody's tax return, and if they're trying to pay less taxes, you could say, well, what are you trying to cheat the tax system there? Oh, you're trying to cheat it, aren't you? Oh, you're trying to get a loan on your property, and you're saying it's worth more than it is? Oh, right. Everybody does that. That's why you make your bed before people come over and look at your house, because it's worth more if it's nice and tidy and cleaned up and polished around the edges. And so you can get an appraisal on your own home and have disagreements about its value. So if Trump did that, well, I think this is worth this. And Letitia James says, well, we think you inflated that. Well, that's a symptom of the system. Okay. If she went after every single, CEO or Fortune 500 company of all of these other mega ultra, wealthy companies, she's singling out Donald Trump for stuff that she just wants to find. And it's offensive because this is America. We're not supposed to have political prosecutions. Letitia James says, Rob, you forgot to mention we'll be sending subpoenas to Trump's plumber, pool guy, and landscaper. They will also pay a price. They better hold on to their seats, because I wouldn't put it past them. Kincaid says, oh, no, a rich guy. Maybe his family bent the rules. At least they had time to cause their hands weren't packed with lotions, purple pills, and batteries. What a damn waste of everyone's money and time. We learned our lesson during the 30s and 50s. How did they miss the memo? Good question, Kincaid. John over on YouTube with the super chat earlier says, rest in peace, Meatloaf. I saw that, man. It feels like a lot of, impactful people are passing away lately. It's really wild. It's, it's just like, it feels like the headlines have just been ultra loud lately of that. Jerry Nadler says, Rob, the Southern District of New York is the most fair and unbiased place in America. Oh, God, it's Jerry Nadler. Beside that, they have some great all-you-can-eat buffets. And you know I like to eat. Is that such a crime? You know, the problem, Jerry, look, there are other people at a buffet. You have to be considerate of them. If you wade in there with your 43.5-pound diaper, waddling around like a penguin, it's not conducive to an appetite. Somebody's got to change Jerry Nadler. This is getting ridiculous. Sergeant Bob says, maybe you don't want to read this. Let me see. Yeah, I probably don't want to read that, Sergeant Bob. We've got another one from Ray Epps says, hey, Rob, don't worry. I was informed on the January 6th commission of your cooperation, so don't have to worry. Ray, this is a live show. You can't tell people those things. This is inappropriate. We have another one from No Name says, Letitia James. Letitia hates Trump because she can't grow the yellow. What? Is it about hair, somebody's saying? Or was Letitia James's campaign funded by the Clintons? Somehow it's obvious that Letitia is abusing the prosecutor's office, but what I want to know is what laws she is violating. Is she jealous of Trump's hair? Is there a reason Letitia James isn't going after Hillary Clinton or securing government there is a reason. It's because it's all political, right? It's Hillary's on her side, not the other side. Kincaid says, I hope Trump's new lawyer crushes them. Aren't the Dems supposed to be ultra understanding and woke? Break the glass and cut all those other bees, is Harris when not in service. Yeah, it's like really offensive. Here's this like strong, like independent woman who's like got her own law firm. And they're like, oh yeah, she's just good looking. So she just must be sleeping with him. You're like, what? That's offensive. Bumma Lickett is here, says, why do they hate Donald Trump so much? I'm trying to understand them, but I couldn't. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I don't like the things he does or says sometimes, but to hate the man, to go after him like that bad, it makes me wonder. I wish the haters pause for a bit and analyze why they hate Trump. I'm not saying they like the man, but to hate a person, it's not only detestable, but it's beyond me. It is, right? It's kind of a weird way to live. I know people like that, right? You know people like that. There are people that are really, not much in my life at all anymore, but who were so riled up about Donald Trump, you'd be like, well, how was your vacation? And they'd be like, well, on the way back, it was really good until Donald Trump decided that he was going to pass that new law and it just ruined everything for me. And I'm like, are you a psycho? What's wrong with you? He's 3,000 miles away from the beach where you're at. Can you just live your life and stop, twisting yourself into a pretzel over this stuff? It's nuts. All right. But yeah, it is, Bumma Lickett. It's TDS. It's a real thing. We have another one. Monster One says, for some reason, Trump always hires low-profile attorneys. Maybe he'll hire you. Well, one could only hope. I'd go duke it out for the old guy. Chris Wolney says, Rob, could a fraud, waste, and abuse case be made against lawmakers or federal agencies for politically motivated investigations, legal actions, or color of law abuses that waste taxpayer dollars? What recompense do Americans get when they waste millions of dollars on things like a bogus Russian collusion investigation that was manufactured? Where is the accountability? So, generally, no. So, look, this is not my area of law. As you know, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. So, government litigation or claims against the government are complicated in their own sort of niche. So you can dig into this further. But generally speaking, general complaints against the government you don't have standing for those things, right? If you're just a taxpayer. If you go into court and you just say, I'm so sick and tired of $20 billion being left, what was it, 80 billion? $80 billion of equipment left in Afghanistan. I'm upset about that. I'm a citizen. I pay taxes, a lot of them. And I want to go and challenge that in a court of law. Can I do that? No. I have no standing for generalized grievances. Otherwise, everybody would be suing the government. And so you've got to be somebody with real actual standing. Like you've got to be a party to the claim, general mismanagement of the government. It's not an actionable claim by and large. So you have to, it's a standing issue, really. Monster One says, Did you see Colbert say that the Senate should be abolished? He said a majority of senators voting against the Democratic agenda was undemocratic. Well, that's because he didn't get his way, and he's throwing a temper tantrum like they typically do. Kincaid says, this is a safe picture of warlord Trump. All right, well, I'm going to have to be the judge of that. I don't take anybody's word for it on stuff like that. Let's see what we've got here. Let's make sure it's safe. It's warlord Trump. Let's pull this open over here. Oh, yeah, that's a cool picture. I like these photos. People are so creative. Warlord Trump. He's got the, what is that? Like it's not Wolverine. It's the other gal. That's a good one from Kincaid. Let's see what else we've got. A few more. No name here says, at what point did these prosecutions become prosecutorial misconduct? It's a real tough thing to prove. You know, prosecutors, they have to really sort of breach the rules before it crosses that line. Here, I think in these cases, I don't think a state bar is going to do anything against. Look, you know, you'd have to do something that silo of the law would be angry about. Okay, Letitia James would have to do something that the state of New York bar and the state of New York Supreme Court and all of the judges, everybody who's regulating the law there, that they would have to be mad about. I'm pretty sure she's on their side. Like they're like, yeah, go get him. If Trump takes a hit, perfect. So why would they ever be mad at her? She's doing their bidding. We have a Hennepin County guy says, Hennepin County Sheriff Hutchinson got a normal sentencing for this county. I have a DUI that blew my aggravated level, only got 3 years probation, learned a good lesson, and has helped reshape my life. But he, Hutchinson, certainly not getting special treatment. So there you go, right? Hennepin County guy. So I don't know the law there. Like in Arizona, you go to jail for every DUI, right? It's mandatory as part of the sentence. So that sounds like to me what happened to him. But, you know, a BAC over a certain level is serious jail time in Arizona. It's scaled, it tiers up, but it goes up, right? You don't just get probation. Kenny 1B says, did you hear about the governor of New Mexico who ordered the National Guard to fill the shortage of substitute teachers starting today? Militarization of our schools by the left has already begun. No, I did not hear that, but I will keep that in mind because I've got some videos to make this weekend, and that sounds like a juicy one. Let's see what else. We've got Tim Flynn says, is it possible that all of this is just turning people sour on the Dems and their continuous beating on these dead-end investigations? If for nothing else, won't these people get booted out of office just to get them to quit wasting everybody's time? Tim, I think you're onto something. You know, I don't know if you caught yesterday's show, but on it, we played that clip from Frank Luntz, who had a focus group that he was communicating with. And they're, you know, what were they focused on? They were focused on their kids and masks, and they were focused on inflation and crime. And there was a lady from New York who says, I want to be able to get on the subway without worrying about if I'm going to be, killed on the way to my kid's house. Nobody cared about filibusters or voting rights. Not one person said anything about that. Nobody cared about the Ukraine. I keep saying the. Nobody cared about Ukraine or Russia situation. They care about the grocery shelves being empty and their dollar not going as far. Tim Flynn says, can I get some amens on all of us getting behind an independent candidate for 24? How about a Tulsi Gabbard Rand Paul ticket or something along that line? I'm down for that, Tim Flynn. I'd be down for that. Big fan of Rand Paul. You know, Tulsi, you know, I can take it or leave. I can take or leave Tulsi. Rand Paul, big fan of him for sure. I could see him on a ticket. Let's see what else we've got. Monster One says, Sergeant Bob, you poor naive fool. Republicans won't go after anyone that would take a backbone. I guarantee you the Republicans would declare we, quote, must restore faith in the American people, so we won't be investigating anyone or some crap like that. Yeah, the Republicans are super spineless. They're not going to do anything, which is why that double standard doesn't matter. Like, look, do you think that Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy are going to go after, let's say, like a Nancy Pelosi? You think they're going to go after her? I don't. No, they're not. They're all on the same team. They're all really more or less on the same team. Okay, Donald Trump is an outsider. That's why he's getting the outsider treatment. Every single politician in D.C. was doing cartwheels when he was gone. Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Mitt Romney, all the Republicans were like, whew, finally. But we'll see if that continues. All right, a couple other questions, and then we're wrapping it up here. Kincaid says, like the idea mentioned, create a class or class action or something. I mean, if the Dems manipulate the direction of our nation for years, they lose money, and other quality aspects of life should be plenty of fodder for that. Another one from Sergeant Bob. Lest we forget, Dick Cheney ran Bush, wars, etc. President Trump denounced war. Liz Cheney's not happy because she wants to nuke the planet. Yeah, she has never seen a war she's unhappy about. Let's see. Tweak is asking, is Ray Epps joining the meetup tomorrow? In that case, just make sure he doesn't F any bears in front of the camera. Creepy bear-loving clown. What? Is that a thing? Oh, he has a hunting, I think, photo with bears, something like that. Oh, that's right. Isn't he like laying down next to it or something? I see what you're getting at, Tweak. Yeah, that is weird. I didn't think of it that way, but now that you mention it. Yeah, that's weird. Hey, Ray Epps, if you're out there, I'd love to have you on the meetup, all right? Come on in. Come join up. You got to sign up on Locals, though, right? It's $5 a month. It's a good value. Go check it out. But you got to sign up. But I'd love to talk to you. If Ray Epps is there, or, I mean, really, any other feds, if there are any feds there, I'd love to talk to you. Got a lot of questions for you. So just come say hi. All right, what else? We've got Tim Flynn says, when you send a low-profile attorney in to handle a case, isn't that a way of saying you think the case is easy to win and something for a new attorney to sharpen his or her teeth on? I wouldn't say that would be a good strategy for a case like Trump's stuff, right? You don't want somebody cutting their teeth on that. You know, cutting your teeth is like, low stakes stuff where there's no real consequences. You do like, 50 reps of those and then you work your way up, and 50 reps of those and work your way up. So I don't think that's the strategy. I think they just think that she's a very competent person, and they go get it. She sounded competent. Looks good to me. Sasha Sisha says, Letitia James just wants a promotion. She knows the only way to climb to the top is to hunt Trump. Oh, and more money. Letitia, how about investigating the mass looting in New York City? Well, she's got bigger fish to fry. That doesn't serve her political ends. Prosecuting Trump does. John Delar says, hello? Hello? I'm here. Hey, John Delar. Glad you're here. Thanks for chiming in. We have another one from Sergeant Bob. Well, Monster One, I get it, but I am naive and stupid. Okay. Monster One says, Tulsi is a no for me. She supports gun control. Is that right? I know there were a couple issues of hers. So I like Tulsi because she's not, carrying the water of her party, much like Ron Paul is not. So I do appreciate that of her. Like if you had to, if I had to pick a Democrat, yeah, I'll take Tulsi. Sure. Come on over. No problem. But, in general, like I wouldn't want her probably at the top of the ticket based on some of the other policy positions she has, if I recall correctly. I'm not up to speed on Tulsi's politics. Maybe they've changed. Seawolf says the Republicans are not spineless. They have shared interests with the Democrats that the citizenry is mostly unaware of, such as which oligarchs own them. Yeah, that's why they don't want to rock the boat. I think it's very true. We've got 503 Unlimited says Mrs. Causes, which I think, isn't that libertarian group? Is that how you say it? It's a libertarian group, I believe. Let's see what this is. Yeah, how do you say it? The MrsInstitute.org. There's this libertarian organization. Here's what it looks like. Causes of the Great Economic Crisis and Other Essays. Ludwig von Mises, I think is how you say his name. I don't remember how you say his name, but yeah, so Austrian School of Economics. Check all of that out. And I think, all right. And I think that's it for the questions, my friends. And let's make sure that we got all of those. It looks like it is. So I want to thank everybody for being a part of the show. Before we get out of here, I want to welcome a couple new people who joined our watchingthewatchers.locals.com community. We've got @John who signed up. I saw John in the house earlier today. I think this is John with the meatloaf comment. There's John. I think we've got One Tough Chick. Saw her chatting today. Welcome, One Tough Chick. Frank MC42, Ion Energy. We've got Wild Child, Alaskan for Trump. We've got AZ Grayman, Mr. Shields, Nora MC, LG00, Angry Bear, Sassy Steph, Ratbag, Ocean Lover, Free Mind. We've got Humphrey's Dad, Shiraz 31, Faradex, The Brink, Lena, Piper _ and Todd Hupp. And I hope to see you on this weekend's tomorrow, January 22nd, monthly locals meetup taking place via Zoom. I'm going to post the registration link tonight and tomorrow, of course. And so come check it out. It's going to be via Zoom. You got to register first. Cameras can be on or off. You can use your real name or your fake name, but it's going to be moderated. And so we're going to make sure that everybody is on their best behavior. And we're going to listen and we're going to hear from Sergeant Bob. We're going to have a chat about this new book, Sergeant Bob Sherman, right there. Grab his book, Cop Talk. We're going to talk about it tomorrow for the start of the meetup, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And so I hope you join us tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Arizona. It's going to be a good time. And so that, my friends, is it for us for the day. I want to thank you for being a part of the show once again. Would really appreciate a like before you got out of here. It does actually do things. And I'd appreciate a subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, if you see the red subscribe button, that means you're not subscribed. So if you press that button, it might say you got to log in, create an account, and all that stuff. You probably already have one because it's just a Google account. But I'd appreciate it. And that way you can find the content, you get notifications, and we'll get to see each other again on the next one. I've got additional videos I'm going to record. I've got a Jen Psaki update. I think she's inciting insurrections now, so we're going to get to that. I've got another video about a law enforcement officer who choked his partner when she tried to pull him off. And so I'm going to turn that one on. So stick around and make sure you come on back here. I'll release some more tomorrow and the day after that, of course. But that's it for the lives, my friends. I want to thank you for being a part of the show one final time. Wish everybody a tremendous weekend. Hope that you unplug from politics a little bit. Spend some time with some friends and family because we've got to recharge those batteries and do it all again on Monday. I look forward to seeing you then. Have a great weekend, my friends, and be well. Bye-bye.